It's a great pleasure to be here. Until last Friday, I was busy campaigning in my own constituency. Once the voting was over, my party asked me to campaign across the country for the Indian National Congress. And I'm proud to say my first campaign stop is Goa. I've just arrived today, and this is the first public meeting I'm addressing. Why are we here? Very simple. We want to change the government in Delhi. Why do we want to do that? Because we believe that the last 10 years have demonstrated that this government poses a fundamental danger to the very idea of India that was fought for by our freedom struggle and enshrined in our constitution. What do I mean by that? When India was created, as you all remember, there were some fundamental debates around the idea of the country. Back in 1947, a partition occurred. Around that time, in that year and the next 5 years, a number of similar partitions happened in the world. There was East and West Germany, there was North and South Vietnam, there was North and South Korea. But in all of those cases, it was an ideological partition. It was a division between communist rule on the one hand and capitalist system on the other. But in India, there was no ideological problem. The problem was on one simple issue. Does religion determine your nationhood? Is religion the most fundamental issue of your identity? Some people said it was, for them, the most important thing. They left India and created a country based on religion called Pakistan. But what remained, in the words of our great freedom fighters, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Ambedkar, was a country for everyone. They said our freedom struggle was for everyone, our country will be for everyone. And in the 2.5 years after that they debated creating a new constitution for India, they debated fundamentally this question. Somebody even said in Parliament, in the Constituent Assembly, after all, Pakistan has been created for Muslims, let us make India a country for Hindus. And that was overwhelmingly defeated after an extensive debate. People said, that's not what we're all about. We are a country for everyone. And the great beauty of India in all these years thereafter has been the basic idea that it doesn't matter what your religion is, what your caste is, what your language is, what your color is, what state you were born in or come from. If you're an Indian citizen, you all have the same rights. This fundamental idea is being challenged now by the BJP. When you hear politicians talking about debates over the constitution, this is the issue they are concerned about. When the BJP talks about ab ki baar 400 par, we ask why. The only argument for having such a large majority is to be able to amend the constitution at your own sweet will. And when the BJP says, oh, but the constitution has been amended many times before, we say, yes, but no one needed that kind of majority. Because constitutional amendments in our country involve everyone. Everyone comes along, all the parties join in, and they amend the constitution almost unanimously in most cases. So you don't need a supermajority for that. You only need that if you want to do violence to the idea of India. And that, sadly, is what we have seen from the BJP in their 10 years of rule. I have noticed, I was away, as Elvis pointed out, and as Mr. Emerson pointed out, I was away at the United Nations for a long time. But I used to come back to India every year, and I saw an India very like the India in which I had grown up. I grew up in an India, and I in fact spent my early childhood in Bombay, where indeed my classmates were people of every religious background, and my parents would never mention it. No one would ever say, oh, that friend, that Christian boy, or that Sikh boy, or that Parsi boy. It didn't matter. In Bombay, your friends were your friends. Their religion was of absolutely no importance. And for people like my parents' generation that came of age during independence, you never talked about such matters. Religion, caste didn't matter. We were all Indians. We were part of the great adventure of creating this wonderful, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multilingual country. Today, I am shocked to see that India is changing. That I am seeing and hearing things being said on the public stage by politicians in high office that would have been considered impolite to even utter behind the closed doors of a private home in the India that I knew and loved. We are hearing a party devoted not to the idea of everyone's equality, but to the slogan of Hindi, Hindutva, Hindustan, a monolithic idea of India. They want one nation, one election. They want one party, one leader. They want one religion, one God. They want one language. They want everything to be one. And of course, for there to be one ruler to control all of this. That is not the idea of India. That is not the India that was written about in the Constitution by the great Dr. Ambedkar, and that is not the India that we were fighting to defend all these years. I'm here to speak on behalf of a man who has served the nation in uniform, a man who has served the Indian Navy and who left as a captain, Captain Viriato Fernandez. Let me tell you about a moment that crystallized this feeling for me. Off Gujarat, there is an island called Diu, and in that island there is a memorial to the only ship, the only Indian Navy ship that was sunk in the 1971 war, INS Kukri. And if you go, you'll see this beautiful memorial. There's a replica of the ship, and there is a wall with the names of every soldier, sailor, everyone on board the ship who went down with the ship. Captain Mullah was the commander, a Kashmiri. He went down with the ship. But when you see all the names, the tears spring to your eyes because you see every religion, every caste, every region of the country represented in that roll of names of people who died fighting to save India. They were not just from one religion. They were not from one state or one part of the country. They didn't speak just one language at home. They represented the wonderful diversity of India. And they were the people who gave their lives to protect our land from the hostile forces that had attacked us. Don't let anyone ever give themselves the right to say that they are the first-class citizens of this country and those they don't like are second-class. Every community in this country has shed its blood for the idea of India, and that idea is worth preserving. Let me stress to all of you that when we fight for this idea of India, we do so with a sense of passion and commitment. And after 10 years of seeing the damage and the danger that the BJP has wreaked in the course of its time as government, we also need to preserve and protect and defend our democracy itself. Because our democracy is definitely under threat. When you vote on the 7th of May, one of the great questions you have to ask yourself is, what kind of India do you want to live in? What kind of India do you want your children to grow up in? Do you want an India which is fearful, where people are scared to say things on the phone because they don't know who in the government is listening? Where people are afraid to express their views openly because they're afraid of consequences from the government? Where even big newspapers, big television channels will muffle their voices when it comes to describing the government because they fear that one step wrong and the ETED and the IT raids and the CBI will descend upon them and examine their accounts. When one newspaper, the Dainik Bhaskar, carried pictures of all those bodies being floated down the Ganga during the second wave of the COVID pandemic because of the incompetence of the government, when they did that, within a day, their offices across northern India were raided and their tax books were opened up, their accounts were opened up, and they were subjected to scrutiny. And that sent a chilling signal to everybody else. You write something the government doesn't want to read, and you will next face this kind of inquiry. We are seeing a situation where all the precious values that we had built up over 65 years are completely under threat. The weaponization of the investigative agencies is just one thing. We are seeing at the same time a crisis of conscience in our country Because not only are people being forced to live in fear, but on top of that, you are finding all the autonomous institutions that were created to protect our democracy. All these institutions, from the Information Commission, the Election Commission, the Judiciary, the Free Press, the Reserve Bank of India, all of these are supposed to be autonomous, free of governmental and political control. All that autonomy has been hollowed out, and they all understand where their fundamental interests lie, and that is in not displeasing this government. Is that the kind of India you want to live in? Is that the kind of India you want to leave to your children? Or do you want instead an India where people are free to express their views, free to live life as they want, free to eat what they want, to dress as they wish, to love whom they like? Or are you prepared to accept a government that feels it has a place in your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your safe, in your dining room? Because that's the kind of government that we have in India today. Or should we have, and should we work for, an India wherein Rabindranath Tagore's immortal words, every Indian can live in a land where the mind is without fear and the head is held high? If that is the kind of India you want, then you need to vote for Captain Fernandes on the 7th of May. I have seen both the opportunities and the possibilities of our great country. I genuinely believe we can aspire to very much more. But to do that, we need to live in a land where each of us is free to think for ourselves, to have our own views, to make our own choices, and not be pressured, not be coerced, and not even be bought by those who have all the power, all the money to do so. We've heard much talk about the defection issue and defection laws here. What does that mean? It means that people who have taken the trust of the voters on the basis of a particular set of commitments, values, and manifesto have simply switched sides and gone to the opposite. Is that possible? Under our country's laws, it should not be possible. We have since 1985 an anti-defection law in India. But as the earlier speakers have pointed out, that law has not been applied successively by various speakers of legislative assemblies because it is not in the interest of the ruling party to apply it. That's why when Mr. Radharao Gracious finished speaking, I said to him, because he had talked about having drafted a solution to this problem of defection, I said, please give me a copy of your note, because I will join Captain Fernandes in taking up this issue in the next Parliament. We need to be able to save the integrity of our country. There are many other issues confronting you all here in Goa. I was listening, my Konkani is non-existent, but where English words cropped up, I heard some ideas that I thought I should react to. One was many speakers calling for dual citizenship. You might want to know that I have spoken out in favor of this, both when I was living abroad as an Indian citizen, and subsequently after coming back and becoming a minister in the government, I have also advocated for this. And my reasoning is very simple. There are a lot of people of Indian origin living in foreign countries, working in foreign countries, who because of reasons of professional convenience, a job, for example, that requires them to travel frequently and an Indian passport might be a disadvantage in the foreign country they're living in, or an issue of a work permit, such as those who've taken Portuguese passports coming here out of Goa and can work easily in the European Union but could not do so with an Indian passport. There are many such examples around the world. But their heart is still Indian. Their soul breathes the spirit of India. And they say that they don't want to give up this document that affirms their connection to their motherland. I sympathize with that. I see no reason why, like many, many other countries, and even like our neighbor Pakistan, why we should not agree that in these special circumstances, someone may take a foreign citizenship without surrendering their Indian passport. The problem is that so far there has been no support for that, and I must admit, no support even in my own party. But I have been pushing this idea. The answer that comes is, oh, but people can only have allegiance to one country. I remember arguing at one time with our sports minister. You may remember that when the OCI was invented in Mr. Vajpayee's government, they called it the Overseas Citizenship of India. But that was a dishonest term, because the Overseas Citizenship of India is not a citizenship. It is only a lifetime visa. It confers none of the genuine rights of citizenship, including the right to vote. So I challenge this, saying, if we're going to call it a citizenship, at least let us give people the rights of citizens. And they said, no, 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 no. We had briefly had a time when OCI cardholders from foreign countries were allowed to play for India and represent India in certain sports. There was a tennis player called Prakash Amritraj, who was born and brought up in America, but who played for India in the Davis Cup. Because at that point he was better than many others with Indian passports. He was only an OCI holder. Until one of our ministers stopped that. And I went and argued with the minister. And he said, if we are playing the US in the Davis Cup, which national anthem will he stand up for? I said, if he's playing for India, of course he'll stand up for our national anthem. The day he plays for America, he'll stand up for their national anthem. How does it matter? But I think perhaps because we are still a young country, a young republic, there was some resistance to that idea, and we stopped even OCIs playing for India. I think we need to take a fresh look at this. One of the issues that I had already is how many of our NRIs are not allowed to vote in Indian elections. I fought for this, I failed, but I succeeded partially because my government was able to agree that if they could come back to India, they could vote even if they didn't maintain a residence here. They could vote in the Indian address given in their passport. But that doesn't help foreign citizens. And that's why the call for dual citizenship is something that I truly understand and support. Let's see if we can push this forward in the future when the next parliament comes into being. Two other issues I heard being mentioned. One is, of course, your land issue. Many speakers have touched upon the fact that Goa's land is being fraudulently sold to all sorts of outsiders, and that your land resources are disappearing before your very eyes. I'm really sorry to hear that. And I really do want you to know that as far as the Congress Party is concerned, we will always want to stand up for your rights to safeguard your own land and to preserve the land of Goa for your cultural heritage and for your own people. That is an important thing, and we will definitely work for that. Similarly, your wonderful environment. It is extremely important that the ecological rights of the Goan people and of the state of Goa be preserved, whether it is from rampant and often illegal mining, whether it is from the laying down of a second track, which may not even be necessary, but through some very vital areas of your state, through heritage homes, through lands, through places where even our forests and our ecology might be threatened. And we must, of course, protect you and your environment from any further damage by the rampant invasion of business interests that have very little to do with the well-being of the people of Goa. So all of these things, you've heard Captain Fernandez speak about it, you've heard the other speakers today speak about it. I just want to tell you, your voices have been heard, and we in the Congress Party, I speak as a member of the working committee of the Congress Party, we will be very happy to take your concerns forward into the next parliament. So this is why it is extremely important for you to actually vote for Captain Fernandez in order to preserve all these things he has talked about, to preserve the idea of India, to preserve the diversity of our land, a land where you should be free to worship as you like, to see the Creator in the form that you wish to see in worship, without anyone telling you that that somehow makes you less qualified for all the privileges of this country. You should be able to speak the language you like without anyone telling you that you have to speak somebody else's language first. in order to be able to be fully accepted. You have to be able to live as you choose, to eat what you wish, without people telling you that that is somehow anti-national. You have to be able to be who you are without the government having a say in defining who you are. These are all things that the people of Goa used to be able to take for granted, and we want you to be able to take those for granted again. This is why when I speak about protecting India, when I speak about all of this, I know that I speak not just to you, but for you. Because I feel very much, as somebody from Kerala, the same way as you do about many of the issues you're confronting. When I arrived at Dublin Airport today, I was asked about a statement by your chief minister that the Congress party is not coming to power for the next 50 years. They said, what do you think? I said, I think he should change his astrologer. But let me tell you, the fact is that the Congress party is doing very well in the election so far. In the first two phases, what we have seen is that a majority of the seats are coming to parties of the India Alliance. And this is not just in the southern states which have voted. Certainly in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, I can guarantee you that there will be 0 seats going to the BJP. When Prime Minister Modi declared that they will get double-digit results in Kerala, I said only if the 2 digits are both 0. And that is exactly what you're going to see coming out when the results are counted on the 4th of June. But not only in the southern states, even in those northern districts that voted, and there were districts in Rajasthan, in UP, in Madhya Pradesh, that voted in these first two phases, the feedback we are getting is extremely encouraging for those of us who want to preserve this idea of India. It is that people have shown a great deal of interest in an alternative to the BJP. They're voting for India Alliance candidates. And in many areas where the BJP used to take their voters for granted, there has been a lower turnout than in the last 2 elections. So the people who turned out in large numbers in order to vote for the BJP are not voting anymore. They are not, in fact, showing up or showing any enthusiasm to bring this government back into office. Because the one thing that we know about this government is that when they say Modi ki guarantee, the only guarantee that Modi has given is that he will break every promise he makes to the nation. That is the guarantee. What did he promise us? 2 crore jobs a year. Not only has he not created 20 crore jobs in 10 years, we've actually lost 1 crore of jobs, and our nationwide unemployment figures, of which Goa and my state of Kerala are the worst examples, show that young people, including educated young people, are finding it difficult to get a job. He said he's going to double the income of farmers. Farmers' income has not even gone up by 10% in these 10 years. He said he would skill all the young people in this country. Skill development in 10 years has been 0.1% of the workforce, and of those they tried to give skill training to, only 1/4 have even found any jobs. We are looking at a crisis in all these areas, and every time you challenge Mr. Modi on his guarantees, he moves the goalposts. In 2014, he said he's going to create jobs all over. By 2019, we had the disaster of demonetization, which cost the economy 2.6% of GDP, where so many jobs were lost, so many small and micro enterprises had to shut down. So instead, he ran in 2019 on a national security platform. Pulwama, Balakot, 56 in chest. That was what people voted for, and he came back to power. But now he can't run on national security either, because in the course of this term, we have seen the Chinese sitting on our frontiers and nibbling away at our territory. And military people like Captain Fernandez will know and will tell you that we had a very good arrangement on the border with China, where there were 65 patrolling points where both the Chinese army and the Indian army could patrol on alternate days. Today, 26 of those points the Indian army has no access to. The Chinese are sitting there. They're preventing grazing rights for our farmers and shepherds, and they are sitting on land that our army used to have access to right till 2020. So Mr. Modi can't run on national security either. What has that left him with in 2024? He is running on Hindu Hridaya Samrat, the Ram Temple, the shamefully inflammatory rhetoric against the Muslim population of our country, where he's saying really awful things. He's also inventing threats to the nation from the Congress manifesto. And I was a member of the manifesto committee, and everything he ascribes to us is not in the manifesto. We've not even discussed it in the manifesto committee, but there he says the Congress is going to come at your home. If you have 2 homes, they're going to take away 1. If you have 2 buffaloes, the Congress is going to take away 1. I mean, there is a rude expression for what comes out of the backside of a buffalo, but I won't use it. But that's what it is. That's what he's saying. He says the Congress is going to snatch away the Mangal Sutras of the women. I don't know what gives the Prime Minister the right to talk about Mangal Sutras, but I won't go there. I will say, however, that none of this has even remotely been part of the Congress's thinking. When one gentleman, who is an advisor and a good friend of many of ours and a sort of guru to us, expressed a private opinion because he lives in America about inheritance tax in America, an idea which is not in our manifesto, suddenly Mr. Modi decided that was what we were going to do. We were going to tax all your inheritance. I'm sorry, let me tell you, not only is it not in our manifesto, but the party that abolished inheritance tax is actually the Congress party under Rajiv Gandhi. And not only did he abolish the inheritance tax, he ensured, after abolishing it, that he personally benefited in no way from it. But at the same time, the country wasn't wasting resources collecting so little money because all the super rich people know how to hide their assets. I ran against a billionaire in my constituency, and when he filed his tax returns, and he had to reveal that in his affidavit when he contested as a candidate, it turned out that in the last 3 years, his taxable income, not even the taxes he paid, the taxable income was 5 lakhs, 680 rupees 1 year, taxable income, and 17 lakhs. These were the 3 years that he had to declare in filing his affidavit. Because the rich know how to hide all their assets. And they hide their assets and they don't pay any tax, so wealth tax was not collecting enough money. And Rajiv Gandhi realized it's only the poor middle-class person with one small flat that he has to hand over to his son when he passes away, that he is unable to manage to do so if the son has to pay tax on it. And therefore he abolished it to protect the ordinary person. And that's what our spirit is. We will not allow such a tax to come into India because of the reality of our country. So let me assure you that all of these are completely fake. But then, as Mr. Amit Shah famously said, these are all jumlas. They're promises made to win elections. 15 lakhs in all your bank accounts. Has anyone got 15 lakhs from the government in their bank account? No. That was supposed to come from black money hidden in Switzerland. 10 years, that was one more jumla that was simply not fulfilled. Every promise this government makes, unfortunately, is broken. I heard a comment about your Goan Ayush minister saying something about the candidate here. I can tell you my experience with the Ayush minister. He came to Thiruvananthapuram, my constituency, for an event involving an Ayurvedic institute. And I said in my speech that we ought to create a national university for Ayurveda. And here is the nucleus of it. You just upgrade it, give us some central funds. We can create a good national university. Kerala is the place that protected and preserved Ayurveda for thousands of years. And he said in his reply speech, excellent idea, we will certainly do this. I'll take this back to Delhi and implement it. You know what happened? After a couple of years, they created a national university for Ayurveda and put it in Gujarat. That is how your Ayush minister has been functioning, and that is how every guarantee that comes from Mr. Modi should be taken with a large dose of salt, because as I said, the guarantee is that whatever is promised will not happen. Now when you ask Mr. Modi about all his promises, he starts talking about 2047. Viksit Bharat in 2047. Well, I can tell you, if Vikas is so important, the part of the country which has had the most Vikas, that is South India, is the part of the country that has completely rejected the BJP. And I urge you in Goa, you represent in many ways a transition between North India and South India. Discover once again your South Indian spirit. Discover the spirit of this wonderful coastal part of India with your shores open to the world, your vision of humanity that embraces all people, all religions, so many languages in this state. And you should therefore do the same as all of us in South India. You should reject the BJP. That would give you the opportunity to live in a proud, free, mutually respectful India that accepts and respects differences amongst people, that preserves our democracy and that preserves our diversity. That is the India we are fighting to preserve in the Congress Party. I urge you to vote for the hand, vote for the Congress Party, and here in South Goa, vote for Captain Viriato Fernandes, and we will give you once again the India we all love. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, for your inspiring